What do you mean they didn't have a navy? What about planetary defense? Lieutenant Justa looked at his fellow officers as they sat in the bridge officers' mess hall of the supercarrier SS Ugosha of the Bernarda Empire. Lieutenant Hartill grinned, his black-fanged teeth contrasting the bright red-scaled skin. Only missiles, cannons, and escape ships? Oh, and some warning being broadcasted. These were mostly warnings that vengeance would come if we continued the attack. I can't believe you slept through the whole attack. Look, I have the evening duty. This is my breakfast and your dinner. I didn't expect the attack to be over so swiftly. I guess my job will be monitoring the shields of the dropships when I get up there. He yawned as he continued to eat as Lat Shintil sat down. She was excited as well. Her bright green scales and yellow eyes glowed. Justa wanted to take her as his mate, but the officers had the first pick. She winked at him. Did you hear? The SS Gushan also took out a human colony. That one was even bigger and older than the one we took. Same thing. No defense, just a silly warning. This is going to be a short and successful campaign. We might get a recommendation. You guys might even get breeding rights. She laughed as she grabbed his food and took a bite. You should hurry up and make a good impression on the captain. This is going to be so easy. I hear the humans got more than 100 colonists, and we will jump to the next one in about an hour. Justa felt his heart beat faster at the news. That meant he would be at the bridge for an attack, and he could prove himself. He stood up. Take the rest, Shin. I'm going to the bridge. I don't want to miss this. They both looked at him, and Hartill looked at his sister. I think he wants to ask for you. She grinned at her brother. I'm not accepting a mere lieutenant. He needs to be a lieutenant commander before I accept. She turned to Justa. Well, get going. Earn that recommendation. Justa saluted them, mockingly, and headed towards the lift and the bridge. As she had said, the ship jumped to the next planet, and Admiral Nuraton was in a good mood. Any ship? No, just transports trying to escape. We have targeted the planetary defense satellites. They are firing. Returning fire! The whole ship rocked slightly as the missile from the satellite hit. Shield down 12%. Justa double-checked the readings. Yes, shield is back up to 100% now. The Admiral turned back to the screen showing the planet. Maybe they have better defense. Any more satellites? I'm tracking 14 more coming into firing rank. Recommend shooting them down. Justa didn't know why he was so brazen, but he didn't want the chance to miss him. Well, you heard him. Shoot them down! The Admiral smirked. We don't want to get in the way of our shield weapons analyzer's chance of mating. I mean recommendation. There was some chuckling from the other officers as the satellites were shot down, though 2 were able to fire, and the ship shook both times. Shields down 25% but recharging fast. The plasma fired seems to be specifically aimed at damaging our shield frequency. Recommend changing frequency. You heard the lover boy. Change it and let a frigate take the hit if they fire again. I want to see if he is right. Justa had to concentrate on focusing on the job. Why was the Admiral so happy to help him get a recommendation? He shook the thought out of his head and focused on his screens. A frigate moved closer to the planet and was immediately but a cannon. With the adjusted frequency, its shield only dropped 5% and moved out of the satellite's range. However, the satellite started to follow, and a new shot was fired. The frigate shield dropped 15%. They adjusted to the frequency. Shoot down that satellite and have the shield fluctuate at random frequency. These are much more advanced than what was reported during the last attack. After he spoke the words, he realized he had just given the Admiral a command, and he looked nervously up. The Admiral simply forwarded his suggestions as orders with a smile on his face, and soon, all the satellites were shot down, and the planetary bombardment could start. Justa observed as the plane-side defense cannons were destroyed, and the landing force was launched. The humans seemed to surrender immediately as the soldiers landed. It was strange. He looked over at the radar operator. Any ships incoming for their defense? The radar operator just shook his head. In fact, the only officer who seemed to have anything to do was the communication officer. He appeared to be listening to something and smirking. Lieutenant Lartor, what's so funny? The LT turned to him and turned on the sound. In perfect Sudasa, a voice was repeating in a loop. This is the Human Defense Force. We have recorded that you have attacked our colony Janus 5. Stop the attack immediately, retreat to your own space, and await our representatives to determine your punishment. We are not responsible for your damages if you do not heed this warning. All the officers looked at the communication officers and then started laughing. Who do they think they are? They don't even have ships to respond with? Justa smirked and, just out of curiosity, transferred the signal to his console, and the alarm immediately went off. The laughter stopped as he went over the alarm. Those sneaky bastards! It's more than just a signal. Lock it out! Lieutenant Lartor immediately closed the signal as they all looked at him. The Admiral came over. So what is it? What alarm went off? He quickly scanned through the security report. There is a program inside the message. They just downloaded our schematics and the whole memory bank. They used our own transmission system to send it to these coordinates in sublight. That might be where their ships are. The Admiral nodded thoughtfully. You just earned that recommendation. Send a squad to those coordinates ASAP. Justa continued to work. These humans were intriguing. They had sacrificed several colonies for this intel. He started reviewing the war reports, finding several instances where intel had been stolen. Not only military intel, but civilian star maps, media gossip. The last 50 years of the regular news reports. The humans were studying them. He barely noticed his shift was over as he transferred everything to his pad and walked towards his mess hall for dinner. Shintil grabbed the pad from him and sat down on his lap. Congratulations on your promotion. Have you been thinking about choosing a mate yet? I know a lieutenant that is interested. She broke him out of the spell, and he looked up at her beautiful face and her lovely yellow eyes. What? Promotion? What are you talking about? She laughed, picked up the pad, and changed to the intern message board where the new promotions were posted. He was no longer Lieutenant Justa, but Lieutenant Commander Justa. Look here, silly. Then she saluted him. Lieutenant Commander Justa, I'm at your command. He looked at her. She should be on duty now, but she didn't seem to worry about not being at her station. Did you have anything to do with this? She shook her head innocently. No, I did not tell my grandfather about you. Your grandfather is the second in command. If you didn't tell him, then I'm pretty sure he did not tell the Admiral. You sneaky little lovebird. You know that if I claim you, we will both be sent home for 3 years before we can be deployed again. She laughed. Wow, 3 years on homeworld with you working in the administration of a research academy while we breed for a year? The horror! They both laughed as they embraced. 1 month later, Lieutenant Commander Justa, here is your report. The aide handed him the crystal and left his office. He sat back and looked at the memory crystal. He dreaded what was on it. It was all their intelligence on the humans from the other alien nations. He input the crystal, and immediately, several files popped up. The most important was from the Kurska Empire, the only empire they feared, and it also had borders with the humans. He started reading. Human Empire. Let us first note that there is no human empire. There are human nations under the leadership of the Emperor Cortez. He and his bloodline is a symbol to unify under, and his only domain is the defense of the human worlds, something he has perfected. Any nation stupid enough to attack them will face the death of 1,000,000 cuts, as the humans call it. They only have a military fleet around their core worlds. These ships are all planet killers, from the fighters to their supercarriers, though they rarely will leave the systems they are defending. Instead, the human empire uses an alternative method of punishing anyone attacking their colonies. The late Sadakun Empire was one of their victims. Justa stopped for a second. He remembered reading about the Sadakun Empire. They and the Kurska Empire were vassal states under them. Their fall was strange. They just had several unfortunate incidents. Their royal bloodline was killed in several freak accidents. Their stock market imploded and made their currency worthless. The corruption in their senate became so blatant that the military committed a coup, which led to a civil war. During the civil war, their best ships and weaponry were sold or stolen by pirates. Within 10 years, they went from the most powerful empire to a backwatered planet and the butt of everybody's joke. Even a Sadakun slave was among the cheapest you could get. No risk of anybody defending them. Wait, that was not true. Lately, there has been a movement to free slaves, even the Sadakun ones. But what did this have to do with the humans? He continued to read. The humans sent their operatives to execute vengeance. This group is often referred to as the Wild Hunt and are experts in the destruction of society. Justa jaw hung open. Are the humans the Wild Hunt? Oh, frack! He sat in shock as the pad buzzed. It was Shintil with a short message. Oh my gods, the Crown Prince and his family just died in a shuttle crash. It's horrible! Justa was lost in thought as he glanced out the window at the human colony Zanzibar Prime. It was human-governed, but only 60% of the population. The second largest group was the Nagino, a humanoid species that looked like humans with fish scales. Like him, their scales changed color to reflect their mood. They were an amphibian species. His assistant, Marjuna, was one. He rarely worked with humans, most of his own choice. The office was clean, with several pots with plants from his homeworld. On his desk was a hologram of his wife, Shintil, and their 3 children. He took a deep breath as he took in the sigh outside. It was a peaceful world, and if the rumors were correct, they would be granted core world status, which meant military presence. Not that they needed it. The last time anybody had attacked had been his own people, the Bernarda Empire, and they had barely survived the ordeal. He had to become a traitor to save his homeworld, but it was at the cost of never being allowed to return. He had a crystal in a closet somewhere with the recommendation of the current emperor, not that he ever could use it to rise in any rank. Officially, he and his family were branded traitors for 5 generations. Unofficially, he was the first Shadow Knight of the Empire. He didn't care. The universe was grand, and the human empire had taken him in with open arms. It was the least they could have done after what he did. There was a beep, and on a screen he saw Marjura standing with a strange person, covered in full biosuit. He let them in and sat down. Marjura, who had always been a bubbling fountain of joy, was quite serious for once. Her skin had turned almost ebony black, unlike her natural light blue skin, and her big bright yellow eyes seemed worried and serious. I don't know why, but Mr. Jacobson told me to bring him to you and tell you to clear everything from your schedule and answer his question. I have no idea what this is about. Justa looked at the person next to her. He or it was like the majority of the species in the galaxy, biped with 2 arms and 2 legs with a head on 2. The black and silver suit covered the whole body, and only a transparent faceplate showed what he hoped was the face. It was slightly reptilian like his species, however. Unlike his smooth, red-scaled skin, this alien had green and rough scales, and the eyes looked more like what humans called spider eyes. Several small black eyes spread over the forehead, and he could not see any fur or hair. He nodded to Marjura, and she left them alone. Greetings! My name is Justa of the Bernarda, and I am from the Sudasa province. How may I help you? The alien looked around and then back to him. Bernarda? From the Bernarda Empire? And you work for humans? The voice was harsh and deep. His stance reminded him of a male warrior. Yes, well, is that why you're here? Don't tell me your people attacked the humans? Justa smirked as he suddenly realized why he had been sent her. I am Gurn Tashu, military envoy of the Sushana kingdom. I came to demand that the humans should surrender to our mighty fleet, and they just sent me to you. Are you a human envoy? Justa took a deep breath and mentally reminded himself to yell at Mr. Jacobson later. No, I'm not an envoy. I'm a planetary shield designer. If Gurn was a Sushana, then it explained the biosuit. They breathe almost pure carbon dioxide, and the oxygen level would be deadly for him. Gurn did not take a seat, but instead stood proudly. Or was it defiant? You are who the humans are, right? The humans? Yes, a clearly pacifist species that focuses on trading. Before Justa could correct him, Gurn continued. Shield engine, you say? So they want you to tell me how powerful your shields are? We have captured some of the human merchant ships. Their shields were tough, but not a problem for our warships. He was clearly slow. It was time to tell the story. Maybe that would break through that dense brain. Oh my gods. Did you attack their merchant ships? Okay. I think I know why they sent you to me. I was in the Bernarda Navy when they attacked the outer human colonies. We took quite a few of them, thinking the humans were an easy target. I don't need a history lesson from a crumbling empire. We have already taken 5 of your colonies. Gurn looked at him with what he could only interpret as disgust, but Justa just cited. A history lesson is exactly what you need, or your kingdom will be the next crumbling empire. They sent you here to give you a warning. My story is your warning. You can ignore my story, but they will do to your kingdom what they did to mine. He was getting slightly upset now as he tried to stay calm. So, right now, shut the frack up and listen. I can give your reference to all I will tell you, and if you have any logical questions, you can ask, but please, no stupid questions or bragging. You're here to learn and hopefully avoid the destruction of your kingdom. He could see Gurn struggled. His honor probably made it hard to accept it, and he clearly wanted to reply, but finally sat down and looked at him. Thank you. Now I was stationed on supercarrier SS Ugosha during the attack on the first attack on the human-colonized Dahlia, 2, Janus 5, and Edo 23. I earned my recommendation for lieutenant commander, so I chose to claim a mate. My beloved Shin Till. He indicated to the hologram. Recommendation? Don't you mean promotion? It was such a stupid question. This just confirmed that he was one of those slow creatures who could not see past their own culture. Ah, in my culture, we raise in rank through recommendation from officers higher up in the rank. It's a gamble. If you recommend weak officers, then you might lose status. Anyway, we got sent to Homeworld to start our family and breed. I was given a research job in the administration. It was there I decided to study the humans. You see, while we were busy taking their colonies, they had been busy hacking and stealing all the intel they could about our military, but also social life. They knew our culture, history, and taboos, and I can tell you that the humans already have all of that from your kingdom. Gurn laughed, yet again confirming his cultural bias. They haven't breached our military intel, and who cares if they learn of our culture? It will only make it easier for them to integrate as our newest slaves. You had to use the slave word? Okay. Humans really dislike slaver, and they will go after you guys for that, but he stroked his chin as he tried to think of how to get through to this brute. Let's get back to my history lesson. 1 month after our campaign started, our crown prince and his family died in a shuttle crash. A tragic accident. That was only the beginning. Then the high priest of the Kuroshians slipped in the bathtub and broke his neck 2 weeks later. Then, 2 politicians who had officially been deadly enemies in the Senate were caught in bed with a Kuroshian nun, whom they had drugged and abused. So these things happen, and nobles always take extra mates. It comes with the power. Not when the person they are bedding is supposed to be a holy virgin nun. It's a capital offense to bed them. The emperor had no choice but to execute them. It led to political hysteria, and the public demanded a full investigation of all the high-level politicians. The net was flooded with conspiracies about what the high-ranking politicians were doing behind closed doors. And one by one, these conspiracies came true. It was almost as if you could order a conspiracy to become a reality. Somebody posted about a politician belonging to devilish cults that sacrifice younglings. 2 weeks later, evidence was found and posted. Within 6 months, we had lost all confidence in our high politicians. At this point, I had my family sell all our values and leave Homeworld. My wife hated it, but we changed all our credits to Galactic and got a small farm on a new Nagino colony. Then, I got a job as a cultural translator, which gave me access to my homeworld. So you ran like a coward because of a few political scandals? You fit well here with the humans. Gurn laughed mockingly and was about to get out of his chair to leave. I'm actually quite brave, but in my culture, a warrior who is about to face death should first secure safety for his family. So pay attention. I left because it was the humans who did all those things. They killed our crown prince without anybody realizing it. They arranged to have the 2 senior politicians to be publicly shamed and killed. They found after that they had all been drugged and they had been innocent. But that was after they had been executed. The humans even manipulated the press to be present when they were discovered with live coverage. So your people are easily fooled. We are not such idiots. Besides, who would care if a few politicians got killed? That would help us. We could finally get a reason to get rid of those corrupt bastards. Our people have never trusted those idiots. Gurn smirked, or at least he thought he did. However, his body language revealed he was getting nervous. Let's continue. While this was happening, something else happened on the net. The normal discussion became much more fractured and hostile. The universities became a battlefield of new, strange ideas. People spoke up against the empire, claiming the death of the crown prince was a good opportunity to remove the monarchy. When law enforcement struck down a demonstration with extreme force, it sparked several violent groups. One group chose to use assignation under the guise of removing and replacing the old rotten tree with fresh new ideas. The rotten tree was, of course, the old influential politicians, whom they killed many politicians of. We found out later they had been trained by human assassins. Gurn shifted uneasily in the chair. My people won't work with humans. Juste chuckled. They didn't know they were working with humans. At the same time, the discourse turned really nasty about everything. I mean, people were sending each other death threats over stupid matters like the correct way to eat a pasha. That's a dish of flatbread and meat on top covered with cheese. I mean, I don't give a damn if you put fruit on pasha or not. We went from a society where the worst you would say was that you're an idiot to sending death threats or reporting people as potential terrorists to law enforcement because they didn't like what they said. We have the same dish. We call it gusa, and you don't have fruit on it, but I won't kill anybody. Are you saying the humans did that as well? He nodded. Yes, it's how they fight. They prefer to destroy your culture and the possibility of working together because then you can fight what comes next. The year after they crashed the economy, the emperor managed to get it back up, and it crashed again. And then again, since we were arguing about everything, we blamed each other. And what were you doing during this? I invested in human companies to secure my family. I researched them and gathered evidence of what they were doing. I shared my intel and was nearly killed a few times for it, but I was lucky and survived. Or I was protected. But back to the history lesson. The need to blame somebody made the government look for a scapegoat, and they chose the Gushka people. People started to treat them very bad. My grandmother was married to one, so I started helping them escape the planet. So, for the next 2 years, I ran an underground escape route that was surprisingly effective. My biggest worry was the newly formed religious police, as the Gushka people don't believe in the Kuroshians' faith, but in the Mishar prophet. In this period, a new invention was introduced. A new company produced an AI that could produce entertainment, such as music, movies, and books at request. It calmed down people for a while as it was high-quality entertainment, but slowly the AI was helping to confirm people's worst views. People didn't notice it. However, after 2 years, the AI had slowly started to produce less and less good entertainment, so nobody wanted to use it anymore. They had destroyed our political figureheads. Our religious leaders had turned out to be bloodthirsty, power-hungry bastards. Our entertainment was destroyed. And since we had used the new AI, they had also slowly rewritten a lot of our history, as many movies were supposed to be about historical events. You know our heroes, but the AI had made movies where their flaws and weaknesses were prominent, and then they completely changed our history. The young had lost their history because they believed the AI. All you're saying is that your people were weak. We won't fall for such tactics. Gurn was saying it more to ensure himself than to Justa. Oh, you don't understand, do you? The crash of the AI made us all wake up for a short moment. When we woke up and looked around, we saw that our economy was destroyed. We had killed our politicians. Our church had been corrupted and become a violent organization dead set on gaining as much power as they could. And the most humiliating thing was that the emperor had died, and we had not even noticed. As the humans say, give the people bread and circus, and you can do what you want with them. Now we had a young emperor whose advisors were religious zealots and isolationists. Crime had gone off the charts, as the local crime families had suddenly gotten access to military-grade weapons. At the same time, the net had worked hard to demonize law enforcement. Simply put, everything we had held high was corrupted and gone. Half the Navy had deserted and turned to piracy due to not being paid for a few years. The last of the military had been recalled and was simply hovering over the homeworld. Again! I don't see how your people's stupidity has anything to do with us. Gurn was desperately holding on to the belief his people would not fall for this, but Justa could see he was doubting himself while he was saying it. You think you're immune? Humanity does not fight wars. They will destroy your culture. They will make the cook the highest status, while the warrior will be the lowest class. You have no defense because you don't even know how this war is fought. When I researched them, I discovered they have been doing this for centuries. You do know of them. You have been warned against them, but somebody is going around and trying to trick us into attacking them. That's ridiculous. We were not warned about humans. There is only one species in the galaxy you should never attack, the wild hunt. Justa slammed the desk as he laughed. And you just attacked them, captured a wild hunt merchant ship, and demanded that they should surrender. Wait, what are you saying? The humans are not the wild hunt? Gurn stood now, panic in his voice, ready to fight. The revelation had triggered his flight or fight reflexes. Justa just leaned back in his chair and calmly continued. The Wild Hunt is just a military group that the humans use. They only ride out when humanity is threatened. I had been looking for a chance to give this intel to the Emperor, our new young Emperor, but I had always been turned away. So 2 years ago, I got help breaking into the palace from a resistance group and begged our new Emperor to listen to reason. I gave him all the intel, I had all the proof, and my reward was to be tossed in prison for a year and regularly tortured. Then, one night, the cell door opened and a human stood at the door. He smiled and left. I followed him all the way up to the throne room, where he just vanished from sight. Their camouflage is so good there could be 10 of them in this room, and we would not know. I was standing in the throne room, and it was surreal as nobody noticed me either. I listened as the Emperor's council was threatening to kill the Emperor if he didn't allow them to commit genocide on the Gushka people. They wanted to build death camps. The Emperor was trying to resist, telling them he already told them no. The priests blamed the Gushka for all the trouble, telling the Emperor the gods were punishing the Empire for allowing these heathens to live. The whole council was siding with the priest. Only the Emperor was against them. I could not believe what I heard as I stood in the middle of them, listening in. Suddenly I felt a gun be put in my hand, and then suddenly they all saw me. Apparently the humans had hidden me from their view, and then I committed high treason as I killed the whole Emperor's council. He took a short break as Gurn just looked at him, and then around the room, almost as he tried to spot the hidden humans we both realized were in the room as he slowly sat down again. The Emperor was quite shocked and wanted me executed, however, not before I managed to shout out that there are humans in the throne room and that he would know them as the Wild Hunt. He didn't believe me, but 5 of them materialized for a few seconds before vanishing again. It gave me time to finally talk to him, and I managed to convince him to seek peace with the humans and accept whatever punishment they deemed fit, or we would end up like the Sadakun Empire. Wait, did the humans take down the Sadakun Empire? Gurn stopped looking around and focused on Justa for a second. I told you, they are the Wild Hunt. Anyway, to finish this quickly, I got banished and was headhunted for this job. As for the shields, they spoke so mockingly about. Do you really think a merchant ship has a military-grade shield? It's for pirates and micrometeorites. The shield we are building here is meant to resist a star going supernova. Now go home. Find out why you guys thought it was smart to invade human space, and somebody has erased the connection between humanity and the Wild Hunt from your military intel, as they did with our intel. The humans will be quite interested in that intel, and you can use that when you negotiate your surrender to them. Gurn looked at him and slowly stood up. I have a lot to think about. Please excuse me. Then he walked to the door as it opened. When he left, Justa sat quietly for a moment, working. He wanted to finish up quickly and get home to the family. Justa smiled as his wife came into the office for there. The kids were at school, and it had become a tradition. She smiled as she sat down, taking out the food she had brought, then got serious as she saw his look. Okay? What is wrong? Is the shield not working up to specs? I told you to use the neutron generator they offered you and use their tech. Besides, it just improved Sashun tech. Justa chuckled and pressed his screen, and a shield model with a neutron generator popped up. I do listen to you, dear, but it's not that. I had this strangest meeting just now. The Sushana kingdom attacked some human merchant ships and sent an envoy demanding the humans surrender to their kingdom. She looked at him, shocked, stopped examining the hologram, and looked at him seriously. Are you sure? Did they mess with their ships? They might have skipped the hunt and just sent the Navy for that. The strange thing was that they didn't know the human was the wild hunt. They thought the hunt was a separate species. It's like somebody is provoking attacks on the humans. We would never attack them if we had known, and we know the humans are not hiding the fact. She knew that look, and it worried her. Don't go do something stupid now. You barely survived last time, and I plan to have at least 20 children. He smirked and moved around the table. Only 20? Oh, so we are not having lunch today? She put her arms around his waist as the door beeped, and they both saw it and looked towards it. Who's there? At Justa's command, the door became transparent, and they saw Mr. Jacobson standing outside with a military officer in a white uniform, an admiral. From the look of it, he was apparent 30s, with short black hair and deep brown eyes, looked ageless. The uniform was bright white with a tight collar that could not be comfortable. They both cursed and separated as he gave the command to open the door. Mr. Jacobson, what a pleasure! He could barely hide his sarcasm. That man was the last person he wanted to see right now. And you brought a friend. They both entered and nodded to them. Yes, this is Admiral Johnson. He is part of the Peace Corps. They mostly deal in the Zeta section, as we are trying a new type of deterrent there. Anyway, oh, please stay, Mrs. Shintil. This actually involves you. That's why I'm here. I wanted to speak with you both without your children present. Justa and his wife exchanged worried glances at this. It sounded worrisome. Mr. Jacobson picked up on it and chuckled as he called up 2 new chairs from the floor. Don't worry. We are actually here to ask for your help. I know such things often involve a negotiation among your culture, so that's what we have been instructed to do. Justa chuckled, called up a chair next to his wife, and sat down. Mr. Jacobson was showing off his cultural understanding, unless he knew how serious the request would be for such a formal negotiation. Please start by telling us what you want me or us to do so we can start the negotiation. Mr. Jacobson looked at the Admiral, and the Admiral started to speak. As you probably guessed by now, human space has been attacked several times by different empires. As he spoke, a hologram of the galaxy appeared, and they could see the full extent of the human kingdoms. They spread like a giant cross across the whole galaxy. The humans had divided the galaxy into 4 parts, and each part was littered with different kingdoms. And all the attacks have been conducted in this area of the Andromeda. The hologram zoomed into the section. This leads us to believe somebody here is trying to provoke us into a fight, something we are trying to avoid. We know that whoever it is has found a way to manipulate historical and military records to such a degree that they make humanity look weak. We need to find out who this is. They looked at the map and then back at the Admiral. So what do you need us to do? My husband already stopped our people. His wife was intrigued, but also worried as she looked at him. Justa just nodded slowly. Well, we want him to return to your homeworld with a team so we can gain access to the historical and military files and find out who changed them. And we would rather be invited than barge in, and we need to locate your grandfather's fleet as well. Their piracy days have to end, and again, we would rather have that cruiser return to homeworld intact as its defender than continue causing trouble. So we actually need both of you, but only Lieutenant Commander Justa, the Shadow Knight of the Crown, needs to return home. The Admiral looked straight at Justa as he addressed him directly. So what is your demand for this? Safety for my family and restoration of the Empire if the evidence reveals that we were tricked. Justa looked at them as stoic as he could, and he could feel his wife looking at him proudly. Nothing would make her more proud. Mr. Jacobson and Admiral Johnson looked at each other, confused, and back at him. Yes, but what do you demand? What? That's a huge demand? Justa was confused now. Didn't they know just how much the restoration would cost them? No, that's not a demand. That's just what we would have to do. We can't endanger your family or you for that matter. You will have a squad of Wild Hunter Knights at your side at all times, and your wife will be secured, and so will your whole family. Yes, I understand that, but the restoration of the empire? Of course we would do that. Come on, you think we would punish you if somebody tricked you and blinded you from the truth? That's like punishing the victim for being the victim. What do you take us for? Mr. Jacobson looked shocked at this, and Justa looked at his wife, whose brain was turning. Wait, you're saying you want to know what we want? Like a small island mansion in the Pacific region of Zanzibar? A holiday to visit your home galaxy and Earth? Admiral Johnson nodded, and Justa hid his face in his hand. No, no, she is going to make a list. Mr. Jacobson chuckled. Then make a list, and I will see what we can approve. Just a warning, we do not donate planets. He was clearly in a good mood and joking as he set a limit for their requests. And if it turns out our suspicions are correct, and we can prove it, then we will fulfill our part of the bargain. 2 weeks later, Justa couldn't believe it as he sat next to Mr. Jacobson outside Homeworld approaching. He never believed he would be able to return. 2 communications, and now he was allowed to return by the Emperor. The potential success of this mission had been enough to make the Emperor set aside all rules and traditions for this. Mr. Jacobson seemed to be half asleep as the ship descended through the atmosphere and toward the floating palace. When the ship touched down so smoothly that he wasn't even sure if they had landed, he saw Mr. Jacobson wake up and got up. Ready? Remember, you lead the show. My second in command and leader of this part of the project. Justa took a deep breath. They had gone over this. He was given the rank of commander to show respect to the Emperor and could officially order humans around. Not Mr. Jacobson, of course, but he tended to have a hands-off way of getting things done. He seemed to trust him too, so Justa felt more confident. The Emperor's High Knight meets him as the door slides open. Shadow Knight! The knight had a traditional uniform and wore the golden helmet that revealed his status. He also held an extra helmet in his hand and waited for him to approach him. High Knight Cartur! Justa bowed his head as the 3 humans formed a line behind him. Justa knew there were 15 more of them on the platform, hidden from view. You know the law and tradition, but you are not allowed to show your face in Homeworld. There is only so much the Emperor can do before it will lead to a revolt. Fortunately, there are loopholes we can exploit. He handed him the helmet. He took it and looked it over. It was an identical design to the one the High Knight wore, except for the silver color and the ink-black faceplate. He understood the meaning and put the helmet on. He would not be allowed to show his face to anybody for the duration of the stay. Thank you. I do not want to prolong the breach of protocol longer than we have to. I want to send these 2 to the Royal Library to review the historical records. They need access to everything, including security tapes. Do not attempt to hold anything from them. The Empire depends on us discovering how our disaster occurred. It felt weird to give direct orders to the highest officers in the Royal Defense Force, but he knew he had no other choice. He was the traitor who worked with the humans to save them. They would hate him later, but now they had a job to do. The High Knight nodded, and 2 humans moved forward and were quickly escorted to the Royal Library. Thank you. My college and I will go to the military academy on Faso, as that is where the disaster was planned. The knight nodded and offered them a skiff to take them to the academy. He joined them as they got inside. Once the skiff was airborne, the knight turned to them. I do not like you, but I admire you. I wish I had the bravery and will to do what you do. You know that your name will still be a curse, even if you are successful. Yes, for 5 generations. However, the Empire will be restored, and my family will know. He looked around at his homeworld. He wanted to return, but he had made his decision. I will miss the Suka plums and Karn wine, the sacrifices I have to make. The knight looked at him surprised, then laughed. Just those 2 things? What did the humans do to you? Mr. Jacobson smirked. We gave him a job, and he helped us build a mixed colony. It's our newest project in this sector. You should be proud of him. Now it was Justa's turn to smirk, though nobody could see it. Don't let the appearance fool you. He is part of the wild hunt, the part you're allowed to see. As for humans, they are. He paused as he searched for the right word. A strange type. Not all of them are nice. Most of them hate each other but still would go out for drinks. The way to deal with them is to imagine him to be a demon who wants to be good, and they try their best. Mr. Jacobson laughed. I like that. Yeah, it's a pretty good description. Demons who want to do good. I hope this turns out to be one of the ties we can be good. Then he smiled and looked around and now and then, chuckling at the thought as they approached the academy. The skiff landed, and they got out. The guards looked at them, ready to act, but at the sight of the knight, they saluted and backed away. When they entered the hall, they were met by the directors and professors, and after a few short instructions, they were led into the archives. So, how are you going to do this investigation? Prof. Shintai led them into the archives as he asked. The humans are going to search the archives for when the change happened. They will simply look at your backup files for humans and the wild hunt, check that the first entireties are relatively correct, Then find the time the knowledge was altered. Justa stopped with the professor as Mr. Jacobson walked into the room, took out a small container from his belt, and released what appeared to be hundreds of insects. And Justa explained to the confused professor, "Those are nanodroids. All we need to do now is wait. That will take hours. The archives are quite extensive." He looked around for a place to sit as Mr. Jacobson turned to him. "Actually, it's quite fast. We will only search for the first time and then check every decade that the intel is the same. And we will start on both ends of the backup files. So from the start and end. Once we find the decade it changed, we do a checkup for what half part then half part until we find the exact date." He looked down at a pad he had produced in his hand. 3 years before the first attack. On your 16th Kasud at 7:45 in the morning. During your breakfast meeting? Let's see who it was. Mr. Jacobson looked at his screen and silently cursed. "Freya, do you read? Check this post, for me." Justa looked at him. They had found something, and it had been done quicker than he thought. "What is it? Possible a big problem? Please let me get this confirmed." He looked worried as he answered him. Justa was getting nervous too. They had clearly found something, but not what they wanted to find. Had his empire made the changes themselves to trick the military into attacking? Did he just damn his own people again? His panic was interrupted by yet another curse from Mr. Jacobson, who walked over to the professor and gently but firmly led him out of the room, closed the door, and turned on a jamming device. "I need you to contact the Emperor and allow us to take every Sadakun slave into custody. And I mean everybody, even those who have gained their freedom." "The Sadakun? But their empire is gone. Even if we all got destroyed, they would never be able to rise against you." "I know, but both here and on 5 other incidents have been traced back to them. It's not about going after us. It's to destroy those who broke free from them. They blame you guys. You were their vassal states, and now you have taken their place. Luckily, it's just a group within their population. But how do you think your people will react when they find out? We would kill them all just to be sure." "Shit. Okay, I will say the price for our grace is all the Sadakun, and that you want them alive and unharmed so they can be relocated. They would believe you're still angry with them and aid you. It's better than having them hunted and killed. There is another thing. They seemed connected to the royal family and your religious leaders. The crown prince was the first one we targeted because he was the one who signed off on the attack." Justa thought for a second. Then it hit him. The Kuroshians' faith was a holdover from the Sadakun Empire. The Mishar prophet was their own old faith. It made him sick to the stomach. They knew it would happen. They wanted it to happen. Those religious zealots had wanted their world to burn. That's why they had gone after the Mishar faith. That faith had a chance of unify and rescue the empire. He looked at Mr. Jacobson. "There will be a religious war over this. Many people will die. That's why we need to separate them, and that's why we brought the admiral. Now I have to call for a crusade and fake the death of a religion while dealing with a bunch of zealots." Mr. Jacobson didn't look happy with the thought, but they finally managed to piece together the puzzle. It had taken the humans 1 month to locate all Sadakun slaves and freed citizens and then reveal the truth. It had taken them 5 hours to put the whole homeworld under tight military control. Then, they started rebuilding. Justa would never return to homeworld, but the emperor himself came to his final resting place, in a secret ceremony, of course, and laid him to rest next to his beloved wife. Only his 35 children were present, and of course, Mr. Jacobson. His gravestone reads, "Here lies Justa, father of clan, Ta, shadow knight of the Bernarda Empire, knight of the Wild Hunt, father, lover, protector, and beloved husband, blessed by Mishar